I'm Batman.
I hardly think so. The real Cape Crusader calls his crime-fighting cohorts when he's running late.
I had to walk. I couldn't get Raj on the back of my scooter.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. Aquaman sucks.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Geekend. Thank you so much for being with us here on this Friday with Tactics, the Geekend. And as always, we try to take a topic that is a little bit easier going, not necessarily as hard-hitting as the world of politics, because let's face it, you're stuck at home right now, and you need something to take your mind off of everything going on in the world today, and that's why we're here. And speaking of taking your mind off of things, I think that there's not a game that does that better right now than the brand new Animal Crossing New Horizons for the Nintendo Switch. So we're going to go ahead and review that, and for that, we're going to be bringing on Chris and AJ for this episode. Hey guys, thanks for being with us.
What's up?
All right, so this game, I think, and I just alluded to it here a second ago, I don't think that Nintendo could have possibly planned a better time if they had known the virus was coming. I mean, everybody being stuck in their own home and can't do the normal everyday things that they normally would like to do, now they can at least simulate that through Animal Crossing. What was your takes on that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that Nintendo wasn't involved in this global pandemic, but the timing couldn't have been better because, I mean, you've seen, I think we've all seen in the news about like Switch buyouts because so many people, I have to assume that Animal Crossing is part of that because, you know, it's probably one of the most popular games on the Switch right now, and it probably will be for a while because if you can't go out and live your life, well, you can stay in and kind of live a life, right?
Yeah, something like that, and I do like how you somewhat sort of softly insinuated that maybe Japan was paying off bats to the to fly over to China and infect some people so that they could sell some Nintendo Switches, which, if that was the case, even though I wouldn't approve of the nefarious human toil that would cause, you'd have to admire the marketing. How well does this game just fit the situation that we're all in right now?
It's almost too perfect. Like Chris said, you know, like you said, Nintendo could not have timed this a lot better. If you're stuck inside, not able to live your own life, you can kind of have your simulated life on Animal Crossing. And I saw the prices on Amazon where Switches were selling, you know, $500, $600 when they retail for just $300.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's just because of the Animal Crossing release.
Yeah,
I did read an article where they said that the Animal Crossing opening weekend, they sold more copies than the Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8 combined on their opening weekends. Yeah,
which is just insane because for a little while, the Nintendo Switch, basically no one even owned the system if they didn't own Breath of the Wild. Exactly. And so, and I know it was a launch title, but still, like, the fact that Animal Crossing has already overshadowed 8 and Breath of the Wild, I mean, that's mind-blowing to me. But I think go ahead.
I think I read somewhere that, I could be wrong, I could be making this up, but I thought I read that it has become one of the best-selling games of all time, and it's been a month.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think how this thing has taken off just because of the situation surrounding the game, which, I mean, they just couldn't have possibly planned for or predicted, especially since this game's been in development for about 2 years now, and it just happened to hit at exactly the perfect time. So I think the reason that timing worked well, though, because, yes, of course, the timing for any simulation game is going to be really good when it comes out at exactly this time, but the fact that it can be downloaded and that you could get it that day as opposed to having to wait for shipping, which, of course, there's been delays and all kinds of things. I actually wound up buying a hard copy, and then because it was taking like 7-8 days to ship the thing, I just canceled my order and went ahead and downloaded it onto the Switch. Which kudos to Nintendo for keeping a big game like Animal Crossing down to just, I think it was 6.4 gigs for the download.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason for its success is partially because of the timing, but it's also because the timing wouldn't matter if the game wasn't a great game. And I think that one of the more interesting additions that they've made to the game, and one that I really like, is the crafting system. So, what was your take on the crafting and how it works with the game, AJ?
It's probably my favorite and my most hated aspect of the game. I really love the crafting part. I did not expect their items to be breakable as is Breath of the Wild. I was not expecting that. I thought I would hate it, but I kind of appreciate it because your weapon or your item breaks and it gives you something else to do to get it back. Also, if you store materials inside your house and you have your DIY workbench in your house, you cannot use your house as storage in the bench. You have to get out of the crafting screen, go to your storage, pull materials down, then go back to your crafting bench. And I think that's probably going to come in an update, a quality of life improvement, because Nintendo has been great about listening to consumer complaints and then fixing them within a week.
Yeah, without getting too off into the weeds here, I think that that's absolutely correct, and I think a good case study of that is how they took what basically became a Easter horror show, and actually is like, yeah, we probably should scale back the fact that we're putting an Easter egg in every nook and cranny, yes, pun intended, of this game. So yeah, they have been pretty good about listening to their fans on that, and I agree. So what was your take on the crafting system, Chris?
So I haven't played an Animal Crossing game since the GameCube, but I think they did a very good job of implementing it because I've played several games over the past past maybe 5 years or so, where they've tried, the developer has tried to put in a crafting system, and it doesn't always work. A lot of times it turns into a tedious grind, and it's really more work than fun. But in a game where you're customizing every part of an island, your house, your neighbors' houses, and even, of course, I haven't gotten really to this point, but the ability to even make your own designs, and now you can customize everything that you're crafting, it fits within the game's, what the game is already doing, now you're doing even more of it. So, unlike some games, introducing the crafting system actually fits and complements what the game is all about. It's not just adding it for the sake of adding it. So, I think they've done a great job so far. I do wish that they would make it to where you can multi-craft. For example, if I have 20 manila clams, can I just craft 20 fish baits at once, please?
Oh, I'm 1,000% there with you, especially since fishing is probably my favorite aspect of this game. I cannot tell you how frustrated I am that I've gotten to where I can do it almost seamlessly in one continuous motion, crafting like 20 different fish baits. But yeah, I think that's something that they'll probably wind up fixing in a patch. And that's the thing. We've actually come up with a few criticisms of the game. They've all been kind of minor annoyances, though, which has been sort of consistent with my experience as well, is that I love the game overall, and when it comes to the crafting system, there are times where I get frustrated with it. Like, I really hate it when my net breaks and I'm running home to fix it, and on the way, I pass a really rare bug or something like that. Like, yes, that gets obnoxious, and I do hate it, but ultimately, it does, I think, add such a level of depth to the game to where, and we've talked about crafting tools, but crafting everything else too, and being able to customize your furniture, change the color, be able to gather that, it makes you actually feel a sense of accomplishment much more so than just buying all of the items in a store, which is the only way that you really acquired items in the past.
But Caleb?
Yeah.
I was going to say, the worst thing that I could experience at this point is your shovel breaking in the middle of hitting a rock with money in it.
Oh, yeah, that is frustrating as all get out. Luckily, that has not happened to me yet, but I'm sure that it will before too long. But yeah, we talked a lot about crafting tools, but I really think that the crafting system, just of the general items, is really what brings a lot of charm to the game and a sense of accomplishment, because with Animal Crossing, that sense of accomplishment is really, really important, because it's not a game that you beat. You're not taking on dungeons, you're not taking on bosses, you're not doing raids or anything like that. And so they have to work a sense of accomplishment into the game to work. And I think the crafting system really adds a lot of that. So that really leads right into the next thing that I wanted to talk about. This is, by I think really huge measures, by far the most customizable game that Animal Crossing has ever done in this entire series. You can customize just about everything, and I really wanted to get your guys' opinions on the level of customability in this game. Chris, what was your thoughts on that?
The only thing, so I've paid off my house. I have unlocked the terraforming. The only thing that I have found that I can't change is my beach. I can't change the level of where the sand turns into grass. And that's pretty impressive, actually. I mean, there are hundreds of different villagers that you can try to go track down and invite to your island. You even have customization items for your crafting. You can customize tools. You can build your own furniture, which I think one neat side effect is collecting recipes is really cool. And it gives them a way to do seasonal events. And I mean, well, you like the Easter bunny thing, you had recipes for all the different bunny day related items, and that gives them a way to continually produce content for this game and not have it be just a static game where once you get all the furniture, you're done.
Yeah, I think adding that layer of complexity definitely helps it accomplish that. I will say, though, that when it comes to that customability, the fact that there's almost nothing in the game that you can't sort of have some level of influence over, because you don't have total freedom. There are some limits and parameters, but most of those parameters go away the longer you play the game, which is something that I've found really interesting. The one thing that you did mention, though, that I'm going to have to take a little bit of issue with is the idea that you can customize your village in the sense that you can customize who lives in it. Because I don't know about you, but I have not gotten any of the villagers that I want.
It's a lot of work.
I mean, like, none of them. And granted, it's better than it's been in past Animal Crossing games. Like, you definitely have more control over it than you did there. But really, if you think about it, if that's really the only limitations to the ability to customize in this game, that's incredibly impressive. That there's so much that you can change. There's so much you can sort of mold and alter to fit your will.
I never really played that many Animal Crossing games before this. I played a couple times on GameCube with Chris when we were kids. And at the time, I wasn't that into it. Like, I didn't see the appeal of it, but now I do, being an adult, especially now being quarantined. You get to simulate your life, like we said earlier. I don't know much about the villagers. I don't know who's. The only one I really cared about was Apollo, the eagle. He, of course, looks like your patriotic villager. He visited my island one time. I talked to him. I got him. I'm happy. The rest of them, I don't care if they stay or leave. I really don't.
Ouch.
Yeah, I'm just being honest here.
Yeah, so looking at it with a fresh set of eyes might actually be helping you enjoy the game because you don't know what you're missing with not having some of the other villagers that you like more.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's fair.
The customization part. Again, I didn't play the Animal Crossing games beforehand, so I don't know what the customization was or wasn't like back then versus now. So I'm trying to learn and figure out what I can and can't do. I don't have a creative bone in my body either, so everybody's doing all these crazy city, like, town replicas, and some people are like, making these giant monument kind of things to, like, put buildings on, like they're the museum, to make it look nice, putting waterfalls around it and decorating. I'm not a decorator. My own house has like 3 things on the entire on all the walls.
Well, now,
so
I think that I probably, and this may be because I've played past Animal Crossing games, and that may give me a slight advantage. I'm probably just a little bit more on the creative side than you are, but I'm looking at some of these islands and some of the designs online, and I'm like, okay, that has to be a guy that got furloughed. There's just no way that anybody has been even working from home and had time to do that in this amount of time. So maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you're right. The level of customability really gets put on display when you start going online and looking at some of the, I mean, just absolutely insane and complicated, but also really remarkable things that different people have done. One of my favorite ones that I saw here recently is there was a guy that customized his entire town to look like a section of Tokyo, which, if you look at pictures of that section of Tokyo, looks exactly like it. And the fact that he was able to do that is a testament to how deeply customizable this game is.
I've seen recreations of TV show sets. I've seen all sorts of stuff. It really is insane what people are able to make. I mean, I'm thinking if Animal Crossing adds redstone like Minecraft, then we're really in trouble when people start building circuits and computers.
So, like the ability to actually make a functioning computer within the game?
Calculator, yeah.
I have seen a recreation of Pokemon in Minecraft. I don't think Animal Crossing needs that.
Just because you don't need it doesn't mean you shouldn't have it, Chris.
I mean, literally the Pokemon Game Boy game in Minecraft.
Does it have Minecraft graphics, or how does that work?
I mean, it's all pixelated. It's the old ones, right? So
yeah,
you get away with it.
Okay, I didn't know that. I've never seen that before, but honestly, it doesn't surprise me. But the thing about Animal Crossing that I think it has over Minecraft is that it doesn't look like you're looking at something with, I don't know, 2200 vision. Like, the difference in Animal Crossing and Minecraft is you get all the fun of Minecraft without having to look at horrible blocky graphics.
Oh, go look at the old pictures of the older Animal Crossing games and compare them to this one. The graphics are
I have.
so...
Remember, I was an OG Animal Crossing person. I had the first one on GameCube, and I played the crap out of that game.
It's amazing how far it's come.
It really is. It's insane, and you don't appreciate the little texture differences until you go back and look at the blocky polygon mess that... I mean, it didn't look horrible, but it certainly didn't look like it does now. Speaking of going online and looking at those kinds of things, though, I think the game's only real major glaring flaw is the online play.
Yes.
And I got a few things that I want to say about this, but I want to go ahead and get your takes first. AJ, we'll start with you.
I've got a lot I could say, but I don't think we have time to say it. The internet's been around for 50 years. Other companies have gotten the internet and the online experience right for the past 20 years. Why has Nintendo not figured this out? I do not need to go through 7 different conversation choices to say connect to the internet and go to this person's island. Like, there are so many different ways I could think of, probably 3 or 4 off the top of my head, that would make that experience so much nicer and easier and quicker and not wearing out the A button on your controller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well... Online play notwithstanding, because we all know Nintendo, for whatever reason, just figured out the internet existed about 5 years ago. They're going to wear the A button out on every game regardless. So you might as well get over that. That's just a Nintendo thing. Yeah. Anyway, no, I think you're absolutely right on that. And the flight system itself just lets you go ahead and know that the online experience is not going to be great. That initial contact that you have, and everything surrounding it is good. Like, Wilbur and Orville are funny characters. The fact that their name is a reference is really cool. The plane, everything surrounding it makes sense. It's the technical side that is awful. And so I don't know why, but Nintendo just, for whatever reason, can't figure that out. Sure, I mean, they're stationed in Japan. Surely they can find some people that know how to work the internet.
If you have a dialogue box open, you can't go to someone's island, and you can't leave either.
Yeah.
And if you do manage to put your console into sleep mode or you disconnect from the internet, it resets everybody on that island to their last save point.
Right, which is usually...
We've had issues with that doing our turnip exchange. We've had that issue a few times.
Well, just with me, one time I was hanging out on Chris's island and fishing and doing a couple of other things, and it just went to sleep on him. And I mean, it happens. But I lost like 70,000, yeah, about 70,000 bells, and I don't know, about 30 to 45 minutes worth of doing stuff on his island. So, man, stuff like that makes people not even want to use the online play feature, and I think that that's really discouraging. That Nintendo actually worked in an incentive to not use a feature in their game. Chris, what was your take on this?
I mean, it's pretty much the same. We know by now that Nintendo and the Switch online play is much more cumbersome and harder to connect to and set up. Finding friends is harder than it should be. I have to think eventually they'll figure it out. So it's not like I'm going to sit here and complain about it too much. I actually like how they are masking all of it by making it look like an airline and all that kind of stuff, instead of just making you sit in a loading screen. So that's nice at least, but it would be nice if they could figure out a less clunky way to connect with your friends.
Well, I would go along with that, but one thing that I would add is, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying right before we went to you, the aesthetics surrounding it are fine. Like, I actually find it quite charming that they have the airport, and it does make it look like it's some kind of, I don't even know what you call that thing, but the little flippy signs to where the name pops up and everything. Yeah, that's cute and all, but I'd rather it look awful and work than look good and not. And that's really my big beef with this thing. The fact that they made it so counterintuitive, they made it actually harder to play the game. They discourage people through the fact that it is so bad from using the feature. And another thing, too, that really bothers me about this, I like the fact that you can visit other people's islands, but we have talked so much in this video about customability, about the fact that they have the crafting system, that there's so much more you can do with it. I mean, you look at the original Animal Crossing game where you could only wear an outfit as long as it was a matching pants and shirt, a matching shirt and hat. And that was like the only thing you could customize about your character. And now you can wear mask, pants, shoes, socks, everything. The fact that we've come that far on all of those in-game features, and the fact that the online play is essentially exactly the same that it was in the GameCube, and by that I mean in the GameCube it didn't have online play, but when you visited another villager's island, all of the functions that you can do now, pretty much exactly the same as it was in GameCube. And so I think it's a massive, massive missed opportunity by Nintendo that you look at this franchise, especially me being a longtime fan of the franchise, coming all the way from the GameCube up until now, and all the amazing innovations that they have done, and when it comes to visiting another person's island, there's nothing to do, and it's essentially exactly the same feature that it was back in the GameCube days. So
the good thing about that is that they do have the opportunity to fix it over time, because now we live where you can push updates to games, whereas you couldn't really do that with the GameCube. So at least they have the ability to go back and fix it and update it later.
That's true, but I don't even know if a software update could fix a lot of the issues that we've talked about. Some of them I think it could, but I mean
it could.
It'd be a pretty heavy load to change fundamentally change some of the functionality in it.
This is a Nintendo issue too. It's not just an Animal Crossing issue.
It is. Yeah, you're not wrong on that. One thing that I'm sort of taken aback by is, where's all the Nintendo stuff? Because if you remember back in previous Animal Crossing games, AJ, you may not be able to speak to this quite as much because you didn't play the old games as much.
Probably not.
But when you look back at some of the old Nintendo games, they had a lot of Nintendo stuff, a lot of references. They even had it to where you could play old NES games in the original. They kind of removed that as the series went on. But even leaving that part out of it, clothes that looked like Nintendo characters, like you could have Mario's hat and Mario's overalls, or you could have a tunic that looked like Link's, that kind of thing. Different pieces of furniture. You could get the Triforce, you could get the Master Sword, you could get a Metroid. Maybe all that stuff's coming, and it's just super late in the game, and we just haven't got to that point in the game yet. So maybe I don't know, fussing about nothing, and I just need to be more patient. But it's really bothered me that we've not even seen a hint of that so far in this iteration of Animal Crossing. What's your take on that, Chris?
So it doesn't really bother me as much as it would bother you. Um, but I mean, it is notable, right? Nintendo loves sticking references into their games to the rest of their franchises, right? They do it all the time. So it is kind of curious that they're not there yet. I suspect that's for one of maybe a couple reasons. Either they're saving those things for rewards or events or whatever later on to make them more collectible in some way instead of just handing them out randomly. Or perhaps, and I hope this isn't the case, that they'll be saving them for some sort of either microtransaction or some sort of online content purchase, DLC kind of thing. I hope that's not the case because I think that will kind of hurt the spirit of the game.
If Nintendo goes from not understanding how the internet works to being EA, I will be ticked. Like, if they just leap over the part where the internet is great and free and get straight to microtransactions, I will fly to Japan to give them an earful.
Yeah, so that's my only kind of... Again, it doesn't make a big deal to me. I don't really care as much, especially because you can kind of go and try to make your own versions of them anyway. But I suspect they're either saving them for special events or they have some plan to monetize them.
I really, really hope you're wrong on the latter. I had not even considered that as a possibility, but if that's the case, I'm going to be really, really upset. AJ, did you have anything to add to this one?
Not a whole lot. Chris hinted at it a second ago when he said that you can kind of do a workaround and make your own stuff with the customization. You can make your own links to it. You can make your own Mario hat if you want, little eyeballs and stuff. You could do that if you really felt like and you were creative enough and had enough time to, put it in to make it convincing, which I've seen very convincing stuff. I've seen people with Link's tunics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
One guy had his character as a Dragon Ball Z character.
That's nice.
Stuff like that. One thing that I thought about...
Well, I have a red suit from Pokemon.
Yeah.
The red costume.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Yeah.
One thing I thought about was maybe the developers are under some kind of disclosure agreement or some kind of NDA where they can't put other game intellectual property or icons into their game, even though it's owned by Nintendo. There's probably still some kind of contractual thing there. Maybe, I don't know.
That seems unlikely to me, just because every Animal Crossing game up to this point has had those items in it. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't see that being the reason. I
mean, now even Disney owns a lot of stuff, but they can't have all their movies. Planets. They can't put a lot of the stuff that they own on their own platform because of contractual agreements with Netflix or whatever other kind of company.
That's true, yeah.
So I'm thinking there might be something there with Nintendo. I don't know. They're all owned by the same parent, but there's still some kind of fingers in it somewhere else trying to, not make it happen.
See, that's why I have you guys on here, because if I was the only one doing the show, I would have never even thought microtransactions or contractual obligations. So you guys bring something completely fresh.
You're cynical.
Horrible, terrible things that I hope are not the case, but I mean, at least they're different. All right, so that's really all I had for this edition, but I do want to get your final thoughts, overall impressions of the game, sort of maybe even a stereotypical old school 1 through 10 rating on the game and how you think it's coming along so far. I get that with this game, that's kind of hard to gauge just because of the nature of the game and what it is. And B, and I think that this is probably even more so what challenges me to give a sort of overall view of the game. Just the fact that I haven't beaten it. And I always feel like I need to beat a game before I give a review of it, but that's not really possible with this game. I mean, even somebody that was time traveling at this point, there's no way that you've been able to do all the things this game has to offer, even if you've been playing nonstop and time traveling. So I'm going to give my overall thoughts now, but, just keep that in mind. So we'll go ahead and go to you first, AJ.
A scale of 1 through 10, I would have to say a solid 9.5. My issues and my grievances are relatively minor. There are a few quality of life things that for me are, kind of moderate, not really major things, but things that can be fixed in the future, things through software updates. And it's nothing that I think hinders the gameplay in such a way that it makes it unbearable or, just too much, or it makes me not want to play it. Multi-crafting and fix it to where we can go to someone else's island a lot easier than mashing the A button 200 times. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much where you are on that. I think that that's a pretty good overview, and the fact that you gave it a really high score and are somebody that's completely, or not completely new to the series, but pretty much new to the series, I think speaks very well of how well this game is made. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, so I guess one thing I haven't really mentioned so far is there have been times where it felt like the game was kind of getting into a lull, and I was starting to run out of things to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little concerning when you go to Tom Nook and you say, "What should I do?" and he has nothing to tell you. I'm kind of curious as to why Nintendo left that option in there when you get to the kind of in-game stuff. But each time it's felt like I was running out of things to do, I hit a milestone which unlocked more things to do. So that's a good sign, right? That they have more content waiting just when you think that you're running out of stuff. So yeah, I think I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. To play on a quote from The Dark Knight, it's the game that what's the quote?
You mean that it's the game that we deserve, but not the one that we need right now?
Oh, okay, flip it. It's the game we don't deserve, but it's the one we need right now.
That's actually that should be the slogan on the Animal Crossing commercials.
Yeah.
So well done on that. With me, I do bat back and forth because there are several points of contention that I've already mentioned tonight. The lack of Nintendo-inspired content, the issues with the online play, and just the minor annoyances with things when it comes to crafting, when it comes to being able to build it up, and of course, one thing that's just sort of the nature of the beast, and I don't blame Animal Crossing for this. This is just an observation. The fact that there's some days where you want to play a lot of Animal Crossing and you have a lot of free time and you kind of run out of things to do. And then the opposite, where you feel like you don't have enough time to play the game to finish your daily chores and you have to leave some things undone that you just missed because you weren't in that window of time. But the thing is, that's the way the game works. And I can't be upset at the game for doing exactly what it was intended to do. So those things do come up occasionally. And there are times where I hate the fact that I just didn't have time to get on for very long today, and I left, maybe a couple fossils that I could have had. But ultimately, that's the way life is. And this is a life simulation game. Sometimes you have time to do what you want to, sometimes you don't. And so the fact that that is part of the game and that's just part of the nature of what this thing is, I gotta say, I really do think it speaks to how well this game simulates real life, how the game does exactly what it says it's going to do, and I wouldn't feel right giving it anything below a 9. And so, with all of the points of annoyance and grievances, it's kind of like going to the beach. Yes, sand is annoying, and I don't like sand getting everywhere when I go to the beach, but at the end of the day, I'd still rather be at the beach on vacation than I would be at home. So I'm okay to deal with the tiny minor annoyances that may cause me to not really enjoy it maybe as much as I potentially could, as long as the overall experience is just that much better than other games or other things that I could compare it to. So I think that it gets a solid 9, probably closer to a 9.5 for my rating. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you being with us. Some great insights this week. We'll have to do it again next week. I appreciate you joining us. And to our regular audience, we will see you next week on Friday here on the Geekend. In the meantime, stay the course, friends. Tactics is a production of News Radio 1440 and Cumulus Media Montgomery. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Cumulus Media or our business partners. Graphics by Jessica Dawson. Video production by Jackson Dean. Broadcast studio provided by Faulkner University. Location studio provided by the Dalraida Church of Christ. Copyright 2020.